Howdy, everyone. How's everyone doing this afternoon? Cool. Hope that lunch was good. I had a chicken parmesan sandwich with a gluten-free wrap, which we can get here in the Bay Area. It's a real honor to be here at CMX. Thank you to the team and David for having me. I actually went to college with David back in upstate New York. So yeah, it's very cool to be here. I'm going to talk about creating meaningful connection in the digital age. And I've really enjoyed the talks here, and I'm especially always interested when speakers are able to share a little bit about themselves. And so with your permission, I'll go back in time to a little bit of my roots. Is that okay? Cool. So I grew up in Marlboro, New York, which is about an hour and a half north of New York City. It's also the town that Snooki from the Jersey Shore grew up with, so we took the bus together growing up. And it's really beautiful, it's quaint, but I also was really disconnected there and I felt really lonely. And that's because I have hippie parents. And when you have hippie parents, you don't have things, I heard someone say yeah, knowingly, yeah. You don't have things like TV or video games or junk food, and you're really just at a disadvantage when you want to go to school and talk to other kids about normal things and you don't know what NSYNC or South Park is. And then I was Jewish. I was the only Jewish kid in my school, so I got bullied for that. And so from an early age, I felt like an outsider, and I really wanted to connect with other people, and was always curious about what connection is. Like, what does it mean when we're with other people and we feel a resonance? And that's kind of fueled a lifelong curiosity that has led to a lot of my work that I'll share with you today. So in 2011, I took my dream job at an advertising agency called Wieden Kennedy in Amsterdam. I was really excited to get to live in Europe, to go to this kind of fancy, sexy ad agency. And I was excited to meet other people and to connect. A big part of advertising is connecting with other people. However, a lot of my time actually ended up being a lot more like this, spending late nights in the office, staring at a screen more than looking at other people. And so after 5 months of this, 24/7, 7 days a week at least, I realized maybe this isn't actually a dream and maybe this isn't right for me. By a show of hands, how many people here have ever quit a job? Good amount of people. So you know how that feels, and at a certain point, you're done, ready for the next thing. This was just 5 months in, but I knew that it was time. And so at the time, it was the scariest decision I'd ever made. There was a lot of insecurity and feeling like a failure, but I just knew not for me, on to the next thing. And one specific element of the job that was really challenging for me was the endless torrent of emails that kept on adding up. I'm sure no one can relate to having an inundated email inbox. And so when I ended up leaving, I decided to start a personal project where I would take people's emails and try to do something with them or transform them. And I'm also curious, and I wanted to take this experience of looking at a screen and kind of make it into the antithesis of that. And so how many people here have sent or received a handwritten letter in the last month? Cool, good amount. And if you think about who that came from or who it was going to, you might feel like there was a little extra care and attention, and if you received the letter, it felt really special. And so I wanted to do this for emails, and so I created this project, Snail Mail My Email, where I invited anyone in the world to send me an email and a recipient's physical address, and then I'd handwrite it and send it to that person free of charge anywhere in the world. And they could request a doodle, or a flower petal, or a spray of perfume, or a lipstick kiss. Made a little website, sent it out to family and friends, and was excited to see what would come back. And very quickly, people started participating and sending an email that would then get transcripted. And it was fun to be creative, and I got some friends involved. And then on the 4th day of the project, what do you think happened? It got picked up by Gizmodo, which is like a tech media culture blog. One person says, "Oh God." So on that 4th day, it went totally viral, and we got over 1,000 letter requests. And this was a free project, I forgot to mention. So, I can't afford the cost of postage times 1,000. What am I going to do? So I took the site down for 2 days and just had a note saying, like, thanks so much for the response. We're trying to figure out how to meet the demand, Ivan, in my email. And a day later, I got an email from someone saying, hey, saw that you're needing support. I want to volunteer as a letter writing artist. And then I got another one, and suddenly I realized this is the way forward, is to gather a team of letter writing artists. And so ended up having this entire team of people that I'd never met, but that through the wild nature of the internet came together and were down to participate. You guys want to see some of the letters? Andy, while you're hard at work, I'm at home making blueberry pancakes while naked. S. And so the person that wrote this doesn't know who Andy is, doesn't know who S is. They're just this like in-between liaison. And we had all sorts of letters. There was no prompt for the volunteers other than, do what you want with these and to take the prompt. And we had letters sent all around the world. So this is in Czech, French, and Portuguese. We had letters of acceptance from Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And so just put yourself in this place of opening the mail and getting a letter like this. We had knit letters. We even had marriage proposals. And so it ended up being a 30-day project, and in that span, it was just cool to see all the different letters that came in. And I asked everyone to take a photo or scan the letter before it went out. And people really went above and beyond in some very cool ways. And the letter artists, all being volunteers, ranged from, we had everyone from middle American moms to middle school students in the Czech Republic. And so it was cool just to really think about the breadth of people that felt called to participate in this kind of like weird art social experiment. And so a lot of people ask why would someone volunteer? And this letter from one of the volunteers, I felt like really encapsulated it nicely. She says, in a world where we move so rapidly from one thing to the next, this project in its unique simplicity has helped reconnect me with humanity. And so if that was what the volunteers were able to get through the project, I totally get it. And so we ended up doing Snail Mail My Email for a week every year for 6 years. In that time, we had 2,000 volunteers that wrote just almost 30,000 letters sent all around the world, and the volunteers paid for the entire cost of postage. So it was very cool. And it turned into a book, which was exciting. I have a copy with me later, so happy to share it around. And a fun fact is that last year I was invited onto the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee for the USPS. Does anyone know what that means? So I'm one of 13 people that gets to decide what goes on the US postal stamp. Yeah, but it takes 3 years to happen, so in 2.5 years from now, when you look at a stamp, you'll be like, oh yeah, that guy Ivan that I saw speak, he had like 1/13 of an opinion about this. And what this project really taught me is that in our increasingly digital, distracted, oftentimes divisive world, human connection is still more important than ever. And I've heard a lot of speakers emphasizing this over the last day and a half. And I think that even if it's something that we're all kind of nodding to and agreeing about, there's so much room for exploring that further and pushing ourselves further and not being content with changing consumer to community. How can we go even further to embody that and to really create these experiences? So I'd love to share 3 additional art projects, experiments with you, and hope that they are in some ways inspiring. Does that sound good? Cool. By a show of hands, how many people here came by a plane? Okay, a good amount of you, welcome. And how was that experience? Pretty great, huh? So when I travel my experience, probably like yours, is waiting in a line and then kind of getting scrunched up. And 3 years ago, when I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, coming back to the Bay, I was coming back from a wedding, and it was such a sweet, warm environment. And then I got into the plane, and it was around the same number of people, but totally different feeling. And I just asked myself, is there any way of making all these people aboard a flight have this warmth with each other, this connection? And so I decided surveys. That's the answer. It might sound a little counterintuitive, but I ended up designing a series of surveys that I would pass around the plane and try to get as many people to participate as possible. So I've got a little video for you, so don't go away. We're going to try playing this video. If we can cue the sound.
Okay.
Hello. Hello. Hi, how are you? Good, thanks.
Hi, Matt, how are you?
Good. Sorry to interrupt. I could just pass me a survey around. Yeah. You just fill it out and pass it on. I do this thing when I fly, which is a survey that gets passed around the plane, and then I had these little works of art. Thank you. And so I know about half of you flew here, so you can go to thepassengerproject.com, print out the free survey, and give it a shot. And this project really taught me and reminds me that there are opportunities for connection all around us, even in the most unlikely places. So I want to share this project, Selfless Portraits, with you, which was inspired by how social media oftentimes encourages breadth over depth. And so we're able to connect with a lot of people really rapidly, but it might not be as easy to connect deeply with someone. And so, yeah, the idea here was, what if my creative friend, Jeff Greenspan, and I wanted to create a platform for people on Facebook to feel more intimacy and connection? And so what if they drew each other's Facebook profile photos, and what if it was strangers drawing each other? And so, yeah, taking the kind of like duality of when we're on our phones, when we're on Facebook, design this website, and want to share a couple of examples of that with you. And so imagine that you go into this Facebook Canvas app, you upload your profile to be drawn, and then you're assigned this random person. You don't know who they are, just their first name and the city that they live in, and then you're asked to draw them. And it was really cool to see the different mediums that people would use. Some people spent a lot of time on their selfless portraits. Some people decided to embellish certain qualities of their subject. People got really goofy with the project. And I love just thinking about like who this artist was, that, you know, this lovely looking woman with this like beautiful embroidery. And I love that you can make a portrait using Q-tips and pennies and a battery. This was drawn in the Congo. And I especially enjoy this drawing because there's something really personal in actually drawing this person on their body. And so what would be like the next iteration of that? That's right, tattoo. By far my most proud professional achievement is creating a project that led to Amarildo from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and Joey from California being forever connected without knowing each other. And so the project lived for 2 years, and then Facebook changed its API, and we didn't really have funding, and so it was just a kind of passion project. We let it go. But in that time, we had over 50,000 portraits drawn from people all around the world. Buzzfeed called it art that brings the world a little closer together. And one quick note I want to touch on, because I know a lot of people here work with different brands, and you might be asking yourself, okay, well, this is all nice to do as like an art project, but how might it apply in a branded context? And so Airbnb ended up reaching out to commission me to do this interactive installation at Sundance, and essentially I just took this project and made it physical. And so this was called Strangers Drawing Strangers, and we just used Polaroid photos to do it this time. And so you'd come in, take a Polaroid photo of you, put it in an envelope, you'd draw a different envelope, and then draw that person. And it was really, really successful, like surprisingly so, because not everyone is a great artist or fancies themselves an illustrator, but people were really down to partake and participate, and I think there was something to do with that connection and that transcended just, you know, doing like a technically good illustration. And so we had different testimonials. I thought I was going to spend a few minutes, and then I spent half an hour, and then my personal favorite, heck yeah, this is going on my wall. Cool. And this reminded me that people are capable of so much more than share, like, and tweet. They just need to be reminded. And so my last project, I'm going to kind of go through quickly, but I'm working on this initiative called In Real Life, or IRL Labs, and it's all about empowering humanity to have more control of technology and more balance. And so, yeah, we're living in a time where this is a very like hot button issue, and no surprises of, you know, headlines like this. And so my friend Scott found this technology that actually makes it possible to block screens. Maybe some of you have seen this before. This was in a Best Buy. And so he showed this to me, and I was like, dude, you're onto something. And so he made a prototype. And when I saw the prototype, I was like, we need to absolutely like invest in this and double down. And so I was like, let's make an actual product. We did that. Has anyone seen the 1988 cult classic, They Live? Yeah, all right. Cool, get some energy up. The main protagonist finds this magical pair of glasses that block screens, and so, blocks advertisements and changes the meaning of them. And so we wanted to, as an homage to that, had never produced anything physical before, but this is a blueprint of the product, and we ended up producing it, brought in a packaging designer friend, got some lenticular going down, looks pretty fly, if I can say so myself. Commissioned some artists to participate, and this is Chantel Martin, Mike Perry, a couple of other folks, and we launched a Kickstarter. And we had never done a Kickstarter before. We're like very unsure of what the results would be, and granted, we did a lot of work, but we're very pleased at the response. We ended up getting over 2,000 backers, raised $140K, and got to ship all of these out. I got to work with my next-door neighbor from growing up, who now runs a shipping company, and so that was a lot of fun. And I guess my message here is that if you have an idea that you're curious about in like any of these projects, I really encourage you to just like try doing it and not asking for permission and not overthinking it, but really just putting it out in the world. And you'll get love if you do that, So we got some of that, Seth Godin and Randy Zuckerberg. You'll also get hate if you do that, and people won't like it. It was trending on the shitty Kickstarters thread of Reddit. And the late designer Tibor Kalman says, if you make something no one hates, no one loves it. So take that what you will. We got a lot of media, and ultimately it inspired us to do a lot more projects around the idea of living more in real life. Right now we're working on tech-free spaces, so if that's something that interests you, I'd love to hear from you and chat later. And so I'm out of time. In closing, I think there's a lot of really exciting technological opportunities and innovations of the last 5 years. And it's kind of up to us how we want to use them and how we want to use them to connect community, how to engage people. And so I hope that you'll really consider human connection and authenticity in that. And I think that in many ways, projects like the Snail Mail, my email project, were able to resonate because they had those qualities. And I want to also give a nod to the Camp Grounded movement that is a couple of years old, and my buddy Levi Felix, who passed away a couple of years ago, created this amazing movement around getting people off their phones into these camps in the Redwoods. And I feel like there's a lot of value in these kind of ideas that are a little counterintuitive technologically, like being in the Bay, but also have a lot of heart in them. So my last takeaway is to consider that maybe life isn't meant to be lived in 2D. I see one woman going like this right now. So I'll end it at that. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll stick around out back to answer any questions. So thank you.